Presumptive GOP nominee Donald Trump met with House Speaker Paul Ryan and GOP leaders on Thursday. Is a unified Republican Party at hand? Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders continues to chase Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primaries. Here to give us his thoughts on the 2016 presidential race is CNBC senior contributor Larry Kudlow. And later, we'll discuss the deep connection between fathers and daughters. Pediatrician and family expert MEG MEEKER is here to talk about her latest. And finally, an exclusive interview with Chaldean priest Father Douglas BAZI of Erbil, Iraq, about the plight of his people who fled the ISIS genocide. The World Over Live begins right now.
Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. Larry Kudlow, Dr. MEG MEEKER, and Father Douglas BAZI are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's show, or if you have a question, I'll be live tweeting throughout. Find me on Twitter at Raymond Arroyo, or you can email me at worldover@EWTN.com. Let's get right to it. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. Donald Trump and U.S. House Speaker Paul Ryan made nice in their much-anticipated Thursday meeting aimed at unifying the Republican Party. Some establishment Republicans have been slow to embrace the presumptive party nominee for president. Speaker Ryan is among them, reserving his endorsement of Trump. The two issued a statement describing their meeting as a very positive step toward unification. The statement suggested that both men are invested in tamping down the Republican infighting as they try to pull the party together in their fight against Hillary Clinton and the Democrats in the fall. And speaking of Hillary Clinton and Democrats, somebody forgot to tell Bernie Sanders that the race was over. Sanders crushed Clinton in Tuesday's West Virginia primary. 51 to 36% of his second victory, or for his second victory, in many weeks. If Sanders' momentum among primary voters continues, Clinton will need the support of the Democratic Party insiders, the so-called superdelegates, in order to secure the nomination. Up next for the Democrats, Oregon and Kentucky vote on May 17th. And the transgender restroom wars escalated this week. The U.S. Justice Department and the state of North Carolina are now suing each other over the state's recently passed law. It requires men and women, boys and girls, to use the respectively assigned public restrooms. In a statement or press conference on Monday, U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch charged that North Carolina's law amounts to state-sponsored discrimination against transgendered people. Also on Monday, Governor Pat McCrory filed suit insisting that the federal government clarify civil rights law. He further said the Justice Department's position is blatant overreach.
I do not agree with their interpretation of federal law. That is why this morning I have asked a federal court to clarify what the law actually is. Now, I anticipate our own legislature, other private sector entities from throughout the United States, and possibly other states to join us in seeking this clarification.
At stake in the dispute are billions in state aid and a potential landmark civil rights decision. Adding his voice to the argument, Bishop Michael Burbidge of Raleigh called for the law's repeal. He, too, said the law would result in discrimination. And same-sex unions have been legalized in Italy. The country's lower chamber passed the legislation on Wednesday by a near 2-to-1 margin. The measure had already passed Italy's Senate earlier this year. The law stopped short of authorizing gay marriage. The Vatican under Pope Francis has steadily opposed legal recognition of same-sex couples, influencing some Italian lawmakers. Italy was the last of Western European countries to recognize same-sex unions. And Labour Party politician Sadiq Khan was elected the new mayor of London this past week. He's the first Muslim to lead Europe's largest city. Khan was officially sworn in at the Southwark Anglican Cathedral this past weekend. Cardinal Archbishop of Westminster Vincent Nichols attended the multi-faith ceremony. Khan swept into office with a landslide victory after a nasty campaign against conservative rival Zach Goldsmith. Goldsmith accused Khan of sharing platforms with Islamic extremists. Khan said he was himself a British Muslim who will take the fight to the extremists. More than 1 million Muslims are Londoners. Elsewhere, violence is again escalating in Iraq as Baghdad saw its deadliest day this year. The Islamic State set off 3 car bombs, killing 93 and injuring more than 100 people across the Iraqi capital Wednesday. The separate bombings came at a time of turmoil and deadlock in Iraq's government and parliament. The Interior Ministry blamed the attacks on political bickering that is increasingly threatening the security of the civilian population. More on Iraq's deepening crisis and the plight of Christians there later in the show. And some big news coming out of Rome. Could Pope Francis be opening the door to female deacons in the church? In a closed-door meeting Thursday with female religious leaders from around the world, the Holy Father was asked if he would be willing to create a commission to study whether women could serve as deacons. The Pope said he was open to the idea, saying, quote, "I accept. It would be useful for the Church to clarify this question. I agree," end quote. He said he'll refer the issue to the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, and moreover, he will ask the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments why women aren't allowed to give a homily at Mass. And the Pope is not shying away from prudential issues. Earlier in the week, during an audience with the aid group Doctors with Africa, Pope Francis declared health care to be a universal right and not merely a consumer good. He lamented that the poor are often excluded from even the most basic hospital services because of an inability to pay or a lack of insurance coverage. Pope Francis praised the organization's work, particularly with pregnant mothers and newborns. But he went on to say that access to health care services cannot be a privilege for only a few. And it appears that ambiguous language for remarried Catholics in the Pope's recent apostolic exhortation may have been by design. Archbishop Bruno Forte, a close collaborator of Pope Francis and the writer of the Synod for the Family's Final Reports, said this week that the Pope told him to avoid, quote, speaking plainly about the issue. According to Forte, Francis told him that speaking explicitly about communion for divorced and remarried Catholics would create a terrible mess. Instead, Forte said, Francis asked for a more general discussion in the exhortation and that he, the Pope, would draw out the conclusions. The most controversial passage from that document, footnote 351, also contains the sole reference to the communion issue, namely, that despite an objective situation of sin, a person could still receive the Church's help via the sacraments. Archbishop Forte also joked that the Pope's request was typical of a Jesuit. Pope Francis has said he does not remember the controversial footnote. Forte's comments were published by an Italian news site and translated by the 1 Peter 5 blog. Now, don't forget, the Will Wilder book tour continues. I had an amazing time with the kids of Our Lady of Sorrows in Birmingham this past week. On Sunday, May 22nd, you can come see me in Roswell, Georgia. I'll be speaking and signing books at 6 p.m. It'll be a special event. For the information on that event and many others, it can be found on the website at raymondarroyo.com. Come see me. When we return, Donald Trump's momentum shows no sign of slowing after becoming the GOP's presumptive nominee. Can he unify the fractured party? CNBC's Larry Kudlow joins us when The World Over continues. Stay right there.
across the board. Businesses, everybody's getting a tax cut, especially the middle class. And I said that I may have to increase it on the wealthy. I'm not going to allow it to be increased on the middle class. Now, if I increase it on the wealthy, that means they're still going to be paying less than they pay now. I'm not talking about increasing from this point. I'm talking about increasing from my tax proposal.
Donald Trump is now the presumptive Republican nominee presiding over a deeply divided GOP, or maybe not. That was him earlier this week, talking about his tax plan. Today he met with Speaker Paul Ryan and the Republican leadership to mend fences. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders continues to dog Hillary Clinton after winning the West Virginia primary this week. To tell us how the Trump-Ryan summit went and to give us his thoughts on the important economic issues at play in this race, I'm joined by CNBC senior contributor and radio host Larry Kudlow. Larry, thanks for being back on the show.
Thank you, Raymond. It's great. Thank you very much.
Larry, you and Stephen Moore at the Heritage Foundation were apparently called in, according to reports, to adapt the tax strategy and the economic plan of Donald Trump. What did you do here?
Well, let me be clear. We have a group, Raymond, called the Committee to Unleash Prosperity.
Right.
And the founders are Steve Forbes, Art Laffer, Steve Moore, and myself. And we have advised all the candidates. We've met with them, had dinner with them. We've even invited Hillary and Bernie, although somehow they lost the invitations. But Donald Trump has been one of the people we've helped with, and of course, he's the last man standing. So it's not exactly true. We've made some suggestions to the Trump campaign, and they're really tweaking his tax reform plan, which I have supported, by the way, for many, many months, his tax plan, particularly his business tax cuts. And we're tweaking around the edges to try to find maybe more economic growth and a lower deficit issue. That's really what it amounts to. By the way, this is all informal. Mr. Trump has not seen final suggestions, and he hasn't signed off on final suggestions.
Okay.
That's really the long and short of it.
Okay. I'm going to put up a full screen to compare the candidates' tax plans. Now, this is just the income tax rate for individual, ordinary income. Look at this. Donald Trump, he establishes 4 tax brackets with rates of 0%, 10%, 20%, and 25%. The top rate applies to incomes over $150,000 for single filers and $300,000 for joint filers. Hillary Clinton adds a 4% surtax on income over $5 million. And Bernie Sanders, he apparently establishes 4 new tax brackets, 37%, 43%, 48%, and 52%. The top rate applies to taxable income over $10 million, and it raises the rates of all other brackets by 2.2%. Larry Kudlow, how do you see these? What will be the impact of these plans on this economy, this slow-growing economy?
Well, let me just begin with Donald Trump. I mean, he is a tax cutter. I mean, right now, his tax plan has a 25% top rate.
Right.
The current top rate is 39.6% plus, plus, plus. So that's a significant tax cut. And he has said that it may have to, the top rate may have to rise on the wealthiest. I say may. It hasn't been determined yet, but I don't think it would go any higher than 28%.
Is that
so
what you'd
still
like to see?
Represents significant tax relief. One of the suggestions we've made informally is to maybe put that top rate to 28. That's where Ronald Reagan left it, by the way, in the tax bill of 1986, 1987. Unfortunately, Hillary and Bernie Sanders are both raising income taxes substantially. And the schedule you mentioned for Mr. Sanders, well, he said a lot of different things in the campaign. Sometimes he said the income tax should go to 70 or 80%. But the point I want to make is Trump's plan, whether it's business tax cuts or individual tax cuts, is a pro-growth, classic free market supply-side plan, very much along the lines of Ronald Reagan and Jack Kemp. On the other hand, Mrs. Clinton's plan and Bernie Sanders' plan is a tax increase. She wants to raise taxes on capital gains. She has not embraced tax reform. She wants to raise individual taxes, as you noted. I believe, by the way, she's in favor of a payroll tax hike, or she's gone back and forth on that. Bernie Sanders wants a payroll tax hike, so that's a tax hike on the middle class, for heaven's sakes. I don't see how that solves the problem of less than 2% growth.
Now, Larry Kudlow, you just said that you see this Trump plan as pretty classic supply side, almost Reagan-esque. So why is Paul Ryan and certain other leaders on Capitol Hill giving Trump such a hard time and the reluctance to embrace him if he's embracing, at least in the economic sphere, what so many of them have desired for so long?
Well, listen, Paul Ryan is a great friend of mine. He's a man of really great integrity. I don't know that they disagree on taxes. I'm not privy to that information yet. Where they, in fact, I think Paul will embrace the Trump tax plan. That's what my sense is. On the other hand, there are disagreements, no question, on trade, protectionism. There are disagreements on immigration, and there are disagreements about entitlement reform. And I'm told by sources that all of those issues came up in the meeting today. Now, Ryan was very gracious, and it sounds to me like they are going to get together, and Ryan will endorse Donald Trump, but they're still moving. It's a process, Raymond. These things don't happen overnight, but it sounds like it's going to have a happy ending to it.
Well, I'm going to play while we're talking about it, and then we'll get back to one other element in the Trump plan, but I'm going to play that Paul Ryan soundbite following the meeting with Trump. Watch this.
I think we had a very encouraging meeting. Look, it's no secret that Donald Trump and I have had our differences. We talked about those differences today. I do believe that we are now planting the seeds to get ourselves unified, to bridge the gaps and differences.
How does this party come together, Larry? How do they unify at this point? You've still got Mitt Romney on the sidelines, you know, kind of throwing rocks at Donald Trump, saying, release your taxes. This disqualifies him from the race. I mean, how do you unify?
Well, look, I'm sorry Mr. Romney feels the way he does. He's a fine man. He's got great character. He doesn't like Trump. That's obvious. He sort of risks becoming the Harold Stassen of the Republican Party. He's run for office so many times and unfortunately failed. But putting that aside, look, these things happen every 4 years. You've always got primaries. They're difficult. They're divisive. A lot of things are said. But at the end of the day, you can come together. I have no doubt, by the way, the Republican Party will come together. Look, I'm not a spokesman for the GOP. I'm not a spokesman for Mr. Trump. I was quite interested to hear that Ryan today basically said we will come together, even though we may not agree on everything. You know, you never agree on everything. That's the nature of politics and policy. But let me make one important point. On the Trump side, recent polls show that he's in a dead heat with Hillary Clinton, nationwide and also in key states like Florida, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Now, the reason I mention that is there are some opponents of Trump who claim his nomination will lead to a Hillary landslide. These numbers contradict that. There is not going to be a landslide. They are even right now, and Trump hasn't even started to campaign. So I think that's a very important point. And after all, in the Republican Party, Raymond, they want to win. And they're not going to oppose a guy who's doing well in the polls and doing well in the campaign. And, you know, Trump's had big numbers in these. I believe he's the biggest vote getter in the history of Republican primaries.
True. No
I'm
other
just
Republican
saying, how do they come together? They will come together. They will come together. But it may not be unanimous. It may not be unanimous. It never is.
Yeah, but Larry, you know, we didn't have John Boehner coming out against Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan when they were the nominees. I mean, I'm sure they disagreed on things too. But to open it up to a public fracas, it does create a narrative that I'm not sure is helpful for the entire party or for the leadership on Capitol Hill, frankly.
Well, look, I don't know. There was, by the way, Romney had his opponents when he ran in 2008 and 2012 too. I mean, that's the nature of American politics. Look, Trump's campaign and his victory, I mean, he had a landslide in the primaries. It really comes out of the blue. I mean, it's one of the most astonishing political events in history, for heaven's sakes. So this thing happens fast, and you've got people that may not agree with everything he says. You know, by the way, I myself, I don't agree with him on trade, or at least I don't agree with raising tariffs. I do think we have to make China play fairly and by the rules, but there are some things I don't agree with deportation, okay? I do support his tax cut plan, as I said earlier, and I hope we have a moment to talk about his corporate tax cut.
I want to get to that right now,
But
Larry.
putting that aside,
Yeah, let's.
This is the normal give and take of politics.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about his corporate tax plans. We're going to put this up on the full screen. Donald Trump would lower the top corporate tax rate to 15%. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders have no specific proposal yet. Your thoughts? What would that do to this economy? Do you think that would instigate things? By the way, that not only applies to big business, but small business as well, any corporation.
Right. That's very important, what you just said at the end. That's for C Corps and the smaller S Corp pass-throughs. I think it's a tremendous, tremendous proposal, and that's why I have been supporting it these many months. Look, I think that cutting the business tax across the board would be the single most important, significant economic growth stimulant possible. It would pick up growth, jobs, wages, investment. It would just be a tremendous thing. It would make America, I think, the most hospitable investment environment in the world, and I think trillions of dollars would flow to the U.S. Unfortunately, Mrs. Clinton will not embrace tax reform, and neither will Mr. Sanders. And in fact, Mrs. Clinton wants to raise investment taxes, as does Mr. Sanders. That is exactly the wrong prescription. The U.S. must become competitive, and we must have the right incentives for our companies to expand businesses, start new businesses, and hire workers at good wages. So to me, slashing the corporate tax is the single most important thing we could do.
Okay, I want to play this bite for you. This is Donald Trump talking about the debt, the United States debt. This raised a lot of eyebrows this week. Larry Kudlow, listen to this.
If we can buy back government debt at a discount, in other words, if interest rates go up and we can buy bonds back at a discount, if we are liquid enough as a country, we should do that. In other words, we can buy back debt at a discount.
Don't you run the danger, Larry, of breaking the credit of our country and devaluing the dollar? I mean, don't we end up, if we buy back debt, in a default situation like Greece or Argentina?
Well, no, not necessarily. Now, this is a little bit in the weeds, but Mr. Trump, I think, misspoke and walked it back. He suggested that we would pay down our debt at 70 or 80 cents on the dollar to get rid of the debt. But then he walked that back and he said correctly, we must not do anything that would damage the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury. We must not. It would be a catastrophe. It would be a catastrophe in
for the world.
Financial markets. Yeah. Now, having said that, yeah, all over the world, absolutely. Now, having said that, Mr. Trump, who is an astute corporate debt guy, he is saying something different. He's saying at some future point, if interest rates go up and bond prices go down, the U.S. government might want to buy back the debt at a discount. Now, right now, everything is trading at a premium because rates have fallen so much in recent years. So you wouldn't want to buy back the debt now at $150. You'd want to wait until it goes back to par at 100, and if it dropped to 80, then you might buy back the debt. So that's a long-term proposition. But Trump had another point that's worth pondering. Yeah. Why shouldn't we refinance, not restructure, but why shouldn't we refinance the U.S. Treasury debt and at these low interest rates, sell long-term bonds, 10 years, 30 years, at the low interest rates? That's a refinancing. That would save taxpayers a lot of money and would relieve the debt burden substantially. So he's got some good ideas, but he misspoke about 80 cents on the dollar for the U.S. Treasury. That's a non-starter, never happened, it shouldn't happen, and he walked it back because he confused that with corporate debt.
Okay, I've got to play this for you. Bernie Sanders is out there, of course, hammering Trump for being a businessman and calling out some of his difficulties that he's had in some of his investments, like in Atlantic City. Watch this.
The greed and the recklessness that we have seen from people like Donald Trump and Carl Icahn. Oh, you know Donald Trump. Oh, I get it. You don't think he is a brilliant, successful businessman who can bring the kind of prosperity to America that he has brought here to Atlantic City. Is that your point?
So you heard that, Larry. Bernie Sanders is really taking on the mantle of the revolution here. He's asking to break up the banks. He wants free college. He wants free health care. He's asking for a payroll tax hike. Does this work?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it resonates among a group of people who are fed up with how things have gone wrong in the United States. By the way, Trump, it's the same populism as Donald Trump, although the solutions are significantly different. Look, Mr. Sanders is anti-business. He's a self-proclaimed socialist. Mr. Sanders made a statement a while back that the business plan for Wall Street was fraud. Okay, so he wants to paint everybody as fraudulent. That's simply not true. That's not how American business works. Bernie Sanders is just a bit anti-business. He's anti-rich. He's anti-success. And the funny thing is, this is what I don't understand. He wants to make everything free. He wants to spend $20 trillion. That's what it's been estimated at. He wants to raise taxes by roughly the same amount. He wants to give away, as you said, free education, free tuition, free health care. Okay, fine. You got to pay for that at some point. Right. But he also is raising taxes on the middle class. He wants a payroll tax hike. So it's like only the government wins under Mr. Sanders, never the private economy, never free enterprise. And I can tell you, as an economist, that is a prescription for stagnant growth, if any, for as far as the eye can see. I mean, after all, the Soviet Union system didn't work, Raymond. Eastern Europe's didn't work. They saw the light. China's didn't work. They've all been market reformers in the last 25 or 30 years. That revolution has bypassed Bernie Sanders.
Final question. Hillary Clinton is out there. She is advocating for paid leave for families. She's looking for debt-free college. There doesn't seem to be, however, a coherent economic plan, at least at this point, put forward. What are her prospects in a head-to-head with Donald Trump, assuming she's the nominee and she makes it past Bernie Sanders?
Well, look, unlike her husband, Bill Clinton, who I thought was a very good economic president working with Newt Gingrich and the Republican majority, unlike her husband, Mrs. Clinton doesn't have a pro-growth economic message. And as you noted, all these issues of government spending and higher taxes, and she's staying away from corporate tax reform. And I think that hurts her. I think that hurts her a lot. And when you look at polls, the Trump economic message is far more popular than Mrs. Clinton's economic message, and the economy is the #1 issue. So she doesn't have a message. I think she's going to be in trouble. In terms of forecasting the November election, Raymond, that may be beyond my pay grade to do such a thing. But I will tell you this, as I said earlier, this could be a very close race or not. But it is not going to be a landslide against Donald Trump. He has a solid core of supporters, and they're growing. And I myself believe that Trump is the pro-growth candidate in this race, and Mrs. Clinton will be the anti-growth candidate in this race. So how that's going to play, I think it puts her at a disadvantage. But it's only May. The election's in November. We shall see.
Larry Kudlow, always great talking to you. Thank you for your insights. And Larry is on the radio, the Larry Kudlow Show. Fantastic listen. So, Larry, thanks for being with us. I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
When we return, Dr. MEG MEEKER joins us to talk about the unique relationships, the important one, between fathers and their daughters and the faith that binds them. When the World Over Live continues. Stay right there and call in with your questions.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to the World Over Live. My next guest has spent 30 years practicing pediatric and adolescent medicine, as well as counseling teens and their parents. She's also a regular expert contributor to LifeZet.com. In her latest book, she turns her attention to the special bond between fathers and daughters and the crucial importance of faith in that relationship. It's called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters Devotional. 52 devotionals every father needs. Welcome once again, Dr. MEG MEEKER.
Oh, it's great to be back, Raymond. You look wonderful.
Well, you look wonderful. I feel like I've been run over by a bus.
Well, yeah, you've been on a harder book tour than
Well, it was a school bus. I think I did 43 school stops. So it's been a lot of traveling, but it's wonderful. I want to talk about this relationship.
Yes.
Why is the relationship between fathers and daughters so special, so important, and what practically have you seen are the results of either having that relationship or not having it in your clinical practice?
You know, fathers are very devoted to their daughters. And do you realize, Raymond, that you share a name with God that mothers don't? You share Father. Mothers don't share that name with God, and so what a privilege to share that name with God in parenting your daughters. Fathers are extremely important in daughters' lives, and the problem is that fathers don't realize that. So what I did in the devotional is I tried to bring dads behind their daughters' eyes so that they could see themselves fresh as their daughter sees them, because I believe if every father could see himself as his daughter sees him, for even 15 minutes, his life would never be the same. Wow. Fathers are a bit intimidated with their daughters. Yeah. They look at this thing, you know, you don't dress like I do, you don't talk like I do, you say funny words. So they're a bit intimidated. They want to grow closer to their daughter, but they don't know how. And so these are really the helps that fathers need to grow that relationship with their daughters.
Why a devotional? MEG MEEKER was always known as a kind of practical, nuts and bolts, counselor, physician. This is what you do when you have a bobo, emotionally or otherwise. Right. This is how to heal the relationship. Why the faith angle and the devotion? Why is that important?
Because every father needs his father to help him parent his daughter. Every dad needs the Holy Father to help him with his children. And when you bring the Holy Father into your relationship with your kids, it gives it that extra oomph. I mean, that's where the solidity and the roots come from. It's truth. It's truth with a capital T. As a medical physician, I give truth a little t, you know, these antibiotics. Yeah. But when you come and you bring God into that, that's where the relationship takes on real deep meaning. Interestingly, many daughters relate to if they have a good relationship with their dad, they relate to God the Father much more easily. They have a bad relationship, they may have difficulty with God the Father.
What about school performance? I came across some data. School performance is very related to that bond between the father and the daughter.
Yes.
Why?
Absolutely. I think it's a security issue. Daughters who have a good relationship with their father, and I'm not talking about perfect dads or, you know, whatever. I'm talking about an engaged father.
I've never met one of those.
No, there's only one.
Yeah, that's right. There's only one.
We have yet to really meet him. Yeah. We will, though. But when it comes to school and grades, we know that all the great medical research shows that when a dad is engaged in his daughter's life, she tests higher on IQ tests when she's young. She's more likely to graduate from high school and go on to college and to professional schools. She's more likely to get very good grades. And I believe, Raymond, it's really about self-confidence, a sense of value, because here's a dads need to know, and a lot of mothers don't like this, but they know this because they've been daughters. Your mother, we feel, is supposed to tell you you can do well. But when your dad says you're going to do well, it's a done deal. There's, you know, we feel as daughters, our dads don't have to tell us we're smart. They don't have to tell us we can do well in school. Our moms, we feel, are supposed to. So that's why dads have an authority in a daughter's eyes with a capital A, I say.
Wow. What is it about the media that has so distorted and in some ways stymied dads from fully engaging with their kids? Because there are an awful lot of negative and ridiculous media depictions of fathers.
I think you're being polite.
Yeah, I am.
You're being very polite.
I wanted to say asinine, but I didn't. But go ahead.
You know, fathers are portrayed as moronic. They're portrayed as people, men, who need to be taught lessons by some snarky 11-year-old kid. And I believe that this is a direct result of the feminist movement that started in the 1970s. I was there at a all-women's college, Mount Holyoke College, in the 1970s. And whenever a revolution is fought, feminists fought a revolution, there are casualties. The casualties have been our good men, our fathers. And it's time to say enough is enough. We know that we need them in our homes. We know we need to speak more respectfully. We need to encourage them. We need to bring them in from orbit. Many mothers will say, well, you know, my husband lives in orbit around our home. Yet we complain that dads never do anything, but we cast them into orbit. And then we say, you never do enough. We tell them what to do. They try to do it. What do? Criticize them.
Yeah.
And then they go back into orbit. We've got to stop. And this is my plea to mothers. If you really love your daughters and you care about your daughters, you must help them have a better relationship with their fathers, divorced or not. Your daughters need, with a capital N, their dad.
What a great message, and it's important, and you do
Very
see
important.
that, and I think
We do.
it's the way mothers and fathers see their role in protecting, you know, the different children in the house, whether it be a boy or a girl.
Yes.
We do treat them differently.
We do. You do. But girls love it.
And fathers can do the same thing. You know, that's my boy. I gotta, you know, hey, he's just being a man. When mom's trying to discipline him, and you're really undercutting
all the time. And
the
you know,
authority of the other partner, the other
I found
spouse.
myself doing that. My husband and I have 3 grown daughters. He'll be having a great conversation with them, talking, and I will swoop in with this tone like, no, I got this. You don't understand. I'm a woman. I thought, how dare you? And I say that, how dare you do that to the daughters and to him? It's disrespectful to him, and it fractures their relationship with him because they feel that he is untrustworthy. You know the #1 protective factor in keeping a girl from being sex trafficked?
No.
Have her father at home, because fathers are natural protectors. They are not preyed upon the way daughters without a dad in the home are.
Ditto for boys, I would imagine.
Yes.
And there was another statistic I saw where if a girl can talk to her father about sexuality and sex issues,
she doesn't get pregnant when she's a teen, because we know that teenage girls are sexually active during the teen years because they want male attention and male affection. So I say to dads, if you really want to help your daughter stay chaste, which is what we want and we hope for them, then be engaged in her life. Don't worry about the sex ed, but communicate to her what your hopes for her are with regard to her sexuality. Help her feel beautiful and wonderful. Teach her to protect it, because that's what makes girls feel good about themselves, and they stay out of the back seat of a boyfriend's car.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And sweep the garage when she's coming home from a date every night. Yes.
Be present, watchful.
Be present.
The circling home.
And it's not bad for the boyfriend either to know that dad's watching.
Put him on notice. See, I have 2 older boys. The little girl, she's not there yet.
Just wait.
Oh, no, I'll be there polishing the gun collection.
That's right.
Here's an email. We've gotten a number of emails. Maggie writes, I'm a single mom. My kids just won't listen. I've taken away activities. I have punished them, and the older they get, the worse the behavior. There is no man in the house. What should I do?
First of all, when I see a mother who is being disrespected by her children, that tells me she's not respecting herself enough and demanding respect. You know, as godly parents, as a single mom, single dad, we deserve respect. God puts us in a position of authority in our children's lives. So refuse to allow those children to disrespect you. Second, find a male in their lives whom you respect, that you can bring in and expose them to, so that your sons and daughters see how good men behave and how good men talk to you.
We have an email here. They asked not to be identified, so I won't identify them, and I'll paraphrase this a little bit. But they're asking, my child has been exhibiting signs of gender confusion. Apparently, this is a teenager who saw something on television, a child having their sexuality reassigned.
Yes.
Your thoughts on this idea, and what would your advice be to these parents?
Sure. First of all, we know Dr. Armand Nicolai, who taught psychiatry at Harvard for many years, is brilliant. And he said the sexuality of a child is not completely formed until they're in their early 20s.
Wow.
So any teenager who comes and says, Mom, I'm gay, Mom, I'm bisexual, you say, okay, what makes you say that? You engage in dialogue, you don't gasp, you don't cry, and you say, I want to tell you something. At this point in your life, you're confused about many things, and you're living in a culture that wants you to rubber stamp yourself as one thing or the other. Tremendous amount of pressure on kids to label themselves. So say, I don't want you to label yourself. Your identity and value as a daughter or son of God trumps any sexual identification that you have. So let's focus on that. And as you get older, let's talk about this sexual identification issue. And knowing that most kids will identify as heterosexual because a very small percent of the population are truly transgender, gender dysphoric. But a lot of kids, unfortunately teenagers, think it's kind of cool. It gets them attention to say that they're this or they're that. Because it does get them attention. And then they get pressure from teachers or other well-meaning people say, oh, okay, well, I'll call you this, I'll call you that. No, they're confused as much about their gender identity as they are about what they want to be when they grow up or what they want to eat for dinner. So, you know, hold it loosely and walk them through this and talk to them and teach them about their value in being a child of God. And whatever they do, say, I will treat you like every other child, heterosexual, whatever. No sex when you're a teenager, no matter what you call yourself. I'm all for equality here. So that kind of takes you off the hook.
Another email. This comes from Candace in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My husband's a wonderful father. He adores our daughter, but they don't really do things together, just the two of them. Is there something I could do to encourage my husband to engage in a special activity or outing with just the two of them? How important is that to have one-on-one time?
You know, I think it is important, but what women typically do in that situation is they start hounding their husband. You never do this, you never do that, and we don't approach it well. I know, I've been there, you know, this is mea culpa. So the best thing to do is say, you know what, honey, I was a daughter. I want to show you how our daughter, Susie, sees you. You are her hero. You are the smartest man alive to her. What she wants to know is, do you want her company? So if you can think of things this week to do to just show her that you want her company, she would love it. If you make a husband feel respected and adored by his daughter, it's all you need to do, and then back off and let him go. And of course, you know, if all else fails, have them read my book.
That's right. Well, that's what they should do first, both fathers and mothers.
Because it's safer coming from a stranger than a wife.
Well, I'm glad you're the stranger. We were awesome. Thank you for this. I hope you'll come back. We could do like an hour of this.
We could.
We'll do it next time.
Yes, because you're a great dad. I know that.
Oh, well.
I know that.
Don't ask my wife.
Okay.
I'm most of the time, but there are days.
Yeah.
Strong Fathers and Strong Daughters devotional. 52 devotions every father needs by Dr. Meg Meeker is available at bookstores everywhere and online. And you can find all of Dr. Meeker's terrific columns, and you should read them at lifezet.com. So practical, so beautiful. When we return, Christians continue to face persecution and death in the Middle East. Chaldean priest Father Douglas BAZI knows this all too well. He'll share his harrowing story and the plight of his people when the World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to the World Over Live. My next guest was kidnapped and tortured by Islamic terrorists a decade ago. He is a Chaldean priest in the Diocese of Erbil. Tonight, he shares the plight of thousands of Christian families who have been forced to live in exile in Kurdistan to escape genocide at the hands of the Islamic State. Will they ever be able to return to their homeland? Please welcome Father Douglas BAZI. Father, thank you for being here.
Peace be with you.
And with you. Tell me, you're, of course, in the Chaldean Diocese in Erbil. 2 million people in 2003, today down to 200,000.
Yes.
What is the state of the diocese and the people in it now? So many have scattered. I mean, can you rebuild with what's left?
You know, just let's imagine in 2014, in one day, we lost 4 dioceses. They disappear in one day just from Mosul.
Wow.
So, you know, when I talk about my people, you know, my people, they are not numbers. They are person, they are people. But, you know, it's really hard to say goodbye every day to your people. So even we are a few, but day by day, we are actually not going. We are getting smaller day by day. So we are talking about today 200,000, but believe me, they are less. In five years, we are going to talk about another number, and I don't think it's going to be more than 5,000 individuals.
It's unbelievable. And you fault the United States invasion followed by the Obama administration decision to withdraw troops. Is that who you fault for the state of affairs that we find ourselves in? That did create the power vacuum, those two events.
You know, when they ask me about what you think like before or what happened, if it was you are with when the America, because, you know, in Iraq is really, it was, you know, hard to call it what, invasion, or call it like freedom operation, and we will struggle with that word. We'll get killed by if you mistake, you know.
Right.
With the, but to me, if I compare the situation like worse and bad, I will choose bad. At least bad is where it's better than worse. And it was actually, it was really big mistake to get in.
Yep.
More bigger to pull out.
When the Obama administration pulled.
When they pull out, it was like invitation to all terrorists. Tell them, okay, we are leaving. We'll come back, or you can't come again and take our replace. So we find ourselves that we are no one actually taking care about us.
People don't understand. Whole villages, whole towns evacuated overnight. I mean, this is what happened and continues to happen with rapidity. 11,000 displaced Christian families, 17 centers you now maintain in Erbil. What are those centers like? Are these families? Is it individual members of families? Who is there, and why are they remaining?
Those people, they force them to leave as the city of Mosul because they give them just 24 hours to leave. Remember, 24 hours, if they are not going to do the 3 conditions to live among Muslims under the Islamic State, convert, if not, pay taxes. And they went to pay taxes, but they told them you have to pay 3,000, 4,000 till 8,000 per each one per a month as a taxes.
Wow.
Of course, people, they don't have that money, you know, it's a huge money. Third, leave or you be killed. So the people find themselves, they have to leave. And actually, we received around 17,000 families. But since that day, till now, we lose 5,000 people already. They live.
Where do they go?
They went to Turkey, they went to Lebanon, to Jordan. They are looking for, and they walked to Europe. Wow. And now we have 11,000, among them 400 Yazidis, and also we have a couple hundred with the Muslim Sunnis. We are taking care about all of them.
And what are the conditions of these people? I mean, they're living in centers, in camps. This can't be comfortable or enjoyable for them. No work to be found?
Sure, I thank you because you are using this word center. By the way, because we don't like to use it camp, it's a negative word. And, you know, logically, those people, they are not recognized by UN because they are inside the country, not outside the country. So because they are inside the country, that means they are IDPs. So IDPs, according to...
Displaced persons.
So they cannot help them. So actually, who take care? Always church has a big heart. Always church is ready there. So we are taking care about those people till now.
So why don't those who leave qualify for refugee status, Iraqi Christians? The United States has already declared this a genocide. Why aren't we recognizing these people as refugees in need of immediate aid?
This is what we are trying to speak out to tell. Look, till now, actually, who helping my people? They are those organizing, and that's mean private money comes from, you know, our organization, Catholic, like Bishop Catholic Conference, like Caritas, Knights of Columbus, A Church in Need, Nazareth, and also helpiraq.org from Detroit. Believe me, if those organizations, if just they stop help, my people, they are going to die in 30 days.
Wow. And the Chaldeans have gone through so much suffering in the last century. When you look back at this last 100 years, amazing, unbelievable suffering for these people.
We are the Church of East Eted Medincha, and that's mean officially they call us the Church of Martyrs. Sometimes they call us the Church of Blood. Believe me, in my country, the blood of our martyrs, more than oil.
Tell me about the Iraqi Constitution. People don't appreciate the Constitution that the United States helped to broker, helped created the space and the political leaders to craft this Iraqi Constitution. What does it say? Does it protect Iraqi Christians, who are the first occupiers of that land, the first native people of that land?
That's right. If we look to the new constitution of Iraq, that one they created under the United States or under the all the Western countries. It's written in the first paragraph, that one based on democracy. Of course, the all Western country international community, when they look to that constitution, oh my goodness.
It's a democratic document.
But done, okay? Go to the next paragraph. No one can create any bill, any law to be against the Sharia and Quran. That's mean forget about the first one. That's mean
it invalidates the top of the freedom-loving liberty mentioned in the top of the document, because it enshrines really Sharia law. It's really a second Quran in some ways in Iraq, yes?
You know, my country, my constitution actually is 100% religion state. It is not democracy state at all. I give you another example. It's written in our constitution that they have to protect those people. I'm talking about Shiis when they go to the shrine, Ali, the Muhammad cousin. So it is the government have to protect them. But at the same time, when they were the 40,000 soldiers protecting the people, they were just going to walk to pray in Najaf. And at the same time, the Islamic State, they were killing Yazidis, our brothers, Yazidis, our sisters there. And no one actually sent those soldiers to protect. Which one is what was really that one need? To help people or just to go to the pray in that time?
Father, I need to talk about your story, which is harrowing. In 2006, you're offering Mass, a rocket hits the church, you're shot in the leg by an AK-47 and kidnapped. What happened? How long did this torture go on? And share with people the rest of this journey, if you can call it that.
I appreciate to not look to me and as a hero, or, you know, I was silent for many years. I never talk for many reasons. One, because who I am to complain about my life. And this is the cost to be Christian in Middle East, especially in Iraq.
I know, but you're a survivor and people need to hear that story.
Yes, I start sharing my story when I saw what happened in Mosul 2014. And I say, okay, they kill our grandpa and we forgive them. They kill our fathers, we forgive them. They kill us, we forgive them. But if they are going to kill our kids, that is not acceptable. That's why I start talk. I survival many times. Yes, they attacked the church. I got shot by AK-47 in my leg. I've been kidnapped for 9 days. I was just a normal Sunday. I finished the Mass and went to visit friends. I found immediately they blocked the highway, put me in my car in the trunk, and they took me I don't know where. And I spent horrible 9 days. With those 9 days, they tied my hand, my eyes, with the chains and with the big lock here.
Wow.
And I used that chance for praying my rosary. And also to put a sign on the wall, how many days I am there. So each day went past, I make a small sign to count how many days I'm there. They let me without water 4 days. The day 5th, they offer water. The day when I just arrived, one of them...
were they holding you for ransom?
You know, they told me actually after. They told me, look, we don't know you personal. We have a list, and your name is a list. And there's a number in front of your name. If you are going to bring you here, so another people, another group, they are going to pay to us. And also we are going to pay, asking money from your relative. That's been double benefit. During the day, I was the spiritual father for those people.
Oh, really? For your captors?
Yes, they were asking me a lot of questions. I was just like this, and and one of them, I remember, he was always ask me what I should do with my wife. That's mean Iraqi ladies, sometimes they are, demanding. And I was telling him, look, you have to tell her that I love you, you are my honey. And the same people during the night, they torch me and call me infidel, that they follow, ask for forgiveness. And sometimes they told me, was who put you by pistol in your bag, was. The first day, they smashed my nose.
With a hammer?
That was with the knee, one of the... The day 6, yes, with the hammer, they broke my teeth and one of my disc and back. They released me after 9 days. And 10 now, when I go to my bed, I want, just to be sure, there is water beside my bed.
I'll bet. I'll bet. Given your experience, and that is just a little microcosm of what's happening to your people every day. For years, this has been going on, decades. What's the answer? What is the answer? Is it religious involvement? Is it we need to have an army come in to create a safe zone for your people? What do you suggest?
I suggest first, here be our voice, that your brother and sister, they are dying there, because we don't have anyone support us, Now the people actually start, because of the Islamic State, they start hearing about Christian. Till now, the people, they thought that Christian in Iraq, they are just a couple years ago.
Right.
We are from the 1st century. Where is the Christianity born, actually? Again, be our voice. And second, don't send soldiers, please. Send teachers, send educated people. We cannot defeat the Islamic State by weapons. We can defeat them by knowledge, by forgiveness.
But Father, how can you send teachers? How can you send educators when they're going to be killed? When you have an occupying force?
Yeah, change the constitution. Make all the people to be
equal under the law.
Equal right. Full citizen, not to be like 2nd class or 3rd class. Why I have to be in my country? Why it was written in my ID, non-Muslim? Because I am not Muslim. They have to write in my ID, non-Muslim. That means me and the others, we are infidels. No way. We should have, right, clean constitution. Keep all people, they are equal together. Right, equal. And believe me, if they are, I know why they cannot do that. Because if really my government wants to have religion freedom, speech freedom, or let's just start with the religion freedom. Believe me, if they are going to do that, change the constitution, me and you, if we are going to meet after 20 years, you will find the Muslim in my country, they are going to be minority.
Fascinating. Father BAZI, thank you so much for being here. If you would like to help Father and his people, visit helpiraq.org. Helpiraq.org. They're doing good work, and we'll be praying for you and your people in the days ahead, Father.
Thank you, God.
Thank you. Well, that is all the time we have until next week. The show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. The links are at RaymondArroyo.com. And don't miss our show next week. Children's author N.D. Wilson will join us to talk about amazing storytelling. And I'll share with you my newest and most personal book. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thanks for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo from Washington, D.C. Bye now.